Hi, my name is Alexandria, and today I'm going to go over vector operators. And what that is I'm going to deal with how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide vectors. So, to begin with, addition and subtraction are simple as normal. So, when you input the vector, it's going to automatically go element by element. So, for example, if A equals 1, 2, and 3, and B equals 4, 5, and 6. If I were to add these two vectors at C equals A plus B, then C would simply go element by element by each index. So this is index 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So since they're even number of indexes in each vector, we can simply do the math. So it will turn out C would equal 4 plus 1, which is 5, 5 plus 2, which is 7, and 6 plus 3, which is 9. Simple enough. It just goes vector by vector, element by element inside each vector. So there really isn't a lot of complications. The biggest thing is to just make sure that when you have your vectors that they do have the same number of indexes. But there's also where you can add and subtract by a single vector, which is known as a scalar. So if we were to have B, instead of being a vector of multiple inputs, to just having one, a scalar, so B equal 2, and we made C equal A plus B, then C would simply get the vector of adding 2 plus 1, which is 3, 2 plus 2, which is 4, 2 plus 3, which is 5. So with a single vector, a scalar, it's simple to add and subtract because it will just go index by index of the vector. So you don't have to worry about matrix math messing it up and an error coming up in your function about adding and subtracting a single vector. So, for instance, we can also do the same thing with subtraction. So if we leave A and B equals 5, 6, 7, and we wanted C to equal B minus A, notice that I put B first instead of A so that I wouldn't come out with negative numbers. But the vectors are still index of 3, so we can do the matrix math, element by element. So C, we get the vector of B, 5 minus 1, which is 4, 6 minus 2, which is 4, and 7 minus 3, which is 4. So simple enough. There's not any complications that usually come up with that. Okay. Now, the issues arise with multiplication and division. Because with multiplication and division, you have to remember that when you input this into MATLAB, the MATLAB is made for matrix functions. So if you do a vector such as A equals 2, 3, 4, and B equal to 1, 3, 5, then MATLAB will simply do the normal matrix math for these two vectors. However, in our case, we just wanted to simply go element by element. So to make sure that happens, what you have to remember to do is with multiplication and division to put a period in front of it so that MATLAB knows that you want to go element by element. And since these two vectors are even and equal in the number of indexes they have, we can do a operation with them. So if we wanted C to equal A times B, then MATLAB would let us go back element by element within the vectors. So C would get 2 times 1, which is 2, 3 times 3, which is 9, and 4 times 5, which is 20. So just remember the period. That's the most important thing when doing multiplication and division. But just like in subtraction and addition, you can also do the operators with a single vector, which is a scalar. So if we kept A the same and made B equal to 2, then if we wanted C to equal A times B, again, since 2 is a single vector, it'll still multiply by each element one by one, even in matrix math. But just to keep in the habit of remembering to put the period in front of the operation, it's fine to just do it whenever, even if you have a single vector, just so you won't forget later on and you get a totally messed up number. So it would get the vector of 2 times 2, which is 4, 2 times 3, which is 6, and 2 times 4, which is 8. So the same is true when we go to division. Okay. So if I wanted to make a vector A equals 2, 4, 6, and I wanted B to equal, let's go with 4, 8, 12. Then in order for me to do division, just like multiplication, I would need to remember to put the period in front of the equation. So if I wanted C to equal B divided by A, notice I put B first because I didn't want fractions of numbers. I wanted it to be B divided by A. So it would follow element by element, just like in any other operation. So as follows, C would yield 4 divided by 2, which is 2, 8 divided by 4, which is 2, and 12 divided by 6, which is also 2. So now B divided by A has given us the vector 2, 2, 2. And the same is true when you want to do a scalar vector. So if I wanted B to be, let's go with 2. So I wanted B by itself to be 2, which is a single vector. Then I also have to remember to put the period in front of the division sign, just as a keep of habit, just so later on I won't forget that when I do two vectors together. So I wanted C to be A divided by 2. Oh, well. So if I wanted A divided by B, C would then get the vector 2 divided by 2, which is 1, 4 divided by 2, which is 2, and 6 divided by 2, which is 3. So these two divided by each other have given me the vector 1, 2, and 3. Now, this concludes the lesson. but they're just some tips I want for the people to remember. So first off is to remember dots in front of multiplication and division sign. So put the dots. Make sure you have the dots when multiplying and dividing vectors. And 2, unless a scalar remember to have both vectors have the same number of indexes. So these are the 2 biggest rules to remember when doing addition and subtraction, multiplication and division within operators. So my video has basically dealt with vectors. I did not deal with indexing numbers to do multiplication and division because I just wanted to do an overall video of how to do it in general. So this concludes my video. This is Alexandria, and thanks for watching.